Here are our assignments for the week. We're going to complete this assignment today, Chapter 6, the Assessment 1. Go ahead and download your instruction file, and this is your start file. And of course, I like to shrink the instructions down to the bottom, and then adjust my spreadsheet. Oops. That way I can see both of them at the same time. And of course, the first set of instructions is to download our start file. This chapter is advanced functions and creating scenarios. It says several functions that are more advanced in Excel and very useful once you learn them. Starts on page 209 in the book, is chapter 6, and I'm going to reference page numbers as we get to the formulas. That way, if you forget or if you need to apply them in the next activity, you'll know where to find the instructions on how to complete that. So the first one, number 2, is everybody there? Anyone? No, Miles down. Okay. So we'll go ahead and start with number 2. And the first one, if you take a look at your start file, notice it opens on the very first tab sheet, which is our retirement sheet. And there are 3 different sheets: retirement, payroll, and employees. So as you go through these, make sure you pay attention to which sheet is involved in the exercise. So this first question says, on the employees worksheet in cell C2, use the concatenate function to combine the first name in cell A2 followed by a space, followed by the last name in B2, and modify the formula so it displays a proper case. If you flip the page in your book, skill number 1, page 210 teaches you how to use this function. It's actually pretty simple. It sounds like it's very complex here, but it's really not. Once you learn, we've already talked about different symbols used in formulas, so we use the same thing. So it says on the employee worksheet, so let's go ahead and click over to the employee tab, worksheet. It says in cell C2, notice, and this is column C, and then notice over here there's a first name and a last name in the same row. So it says in C2, use the concatenate function to combine the first name in A2 followed by a space. So let's look at it. So if we don't know where to find the function, it tells you what it is there. So if you press equal, just type concatenates. And then if you open up the parentheses, then you can go ahead and press the function button and you'll get the arguments. That's not right. Equals. There we go. Okay, now push the function button there. So here's your function arguments dialog box. It's easy to fill this out when you're working with these. So concatenate means put strings together or put information together. So here it's asking you what text would you like to put together. Each one of those, text 1, text 2, text 3, is one piece of information to add to your string or put together. So in this case, it gives us 3 different things that we need to put together. So if we look, we're going to combine the first name in A2. So our first set of text is whatever is in A2. So simply click over in A2. And then it even gives you an idea of what would actually print if that's what we set. So that's the first one. It says use the first name A2. Then it says followed by a space. A space is a character. So we click down in the next text 2, press the space bar on the keyboard. It doesn't do anything yet, except for if you watch the cursor, of course it gives you a space. Then click down in text 3. It automatically adds the double quotes which is a blank string or a space that we know. And then it says followed by the last name, which is whatever's in B2. So just click over in B2. Then it gives you an example of what it'll look like here, just like a regular formula. We're going to take the first name with a space, then the last name, and it just prints the first and last name with a space. So that completes that first step of this first question. So we click OK, and then it shows that our name is there. The next thing says modify the formula so the text display shows in proper case. Proper case, if you look at it, because both names there are printed in caps, it automatically shows them in caps. So proper case will make the first letters capital and everything else lowercase. And all you need to do is come up here into your formula. If you click just before the equals, we need to create what's called a nested formula. In other words, two functions work together. So the first thing that happens is that string is concatenated and it creates that text. Then we need to wrap another function around the outside to give it the correct case that we need. So we just type proper. Notice it's just before the equal. We only have one equal sign. P-R-O-P-E-R. Open the parentheses and then close the parentheses on the other side. So that's telling me I'm going to create that string, and then after the string's created, I'm going to take whatever text is in there and convert it to proper case. So if you press the check mark there, then it gives us a standard format for a first and last name. Okay, does everybody see that? Move on to the next one. Of course, the next one says copy the range from C2 down employees. So let's go ahead and just use the fill handle. That's nothing new. You can hold the little black plus there, double click, or drag it down. And that'll fill the information. And you can leave it just like that because the next step tells you to copy that range and paste it into the retirement worksheet. So you can just right click there and copy. You remove and click on the retirement worksheet there. Notice there's a blank space for employee. If you click in A4 and right click in, you get your paste options. If you just click paste, notice it has this, meaning it's referencing an invalid piece of text. Well, it tells you to paste the values, paste just the values in E4. So if we come down here to our paste special, right there in values, in the paste value section, there's one that just says values. If you click there, then all the names display. So it'll just take the text that exists and not the formula. All right. Now we start working into our lookup functions. You can find the lookup function, skill number 3, in your book, page 214. We'll describe the lookup function to you. And I'll talk through it as we go. So it says on the payroll worksheet, so the first thing we do is click on the payroll worksheet. And here's our worksheet. We'll be here for a little while. And we're gonna, it says in cell G4, which is here, we're gonna use the VLOOKUP function to determine the bonus amount for the first employee in the table. Using the region as the lookup value, it gives you the table array, and 2 as the column number. Okay. So what happens in a VLOOKUP function? Let's go ahead and start it. So in G4, press equal, and just type V lookup. And then open the parenthesis and go ahead and press the little function button here to bring your arguments dialog box. What happens in a VLOOKUP function is the first thing you do is it asks you for a lookup value. It gives you down here in the instructions that it says the employee's region is our lookup value. So if we look over in our table here, there's a section here for region. Again, we're only working with the first row because that's where we're beginning our formula. So go ahead and click right there for region. That becomes our lookup value. And then the instructions actually give you the table array, but I want to show you what it actually is. So it says G5 through L8. So let's look at it. I'm sorry, K5, this doesn't work. K5 through L8, which is this. And then of course it makes it absolute by giving us the dollar signs because the table's not going to change. So this becomes our table of data, or our table we're going to look up values in. And that's not even right, I've got the headings on there. You won't need the headings, just this. Just the data that exists in the table. Okay, so what's going to happen in this function is we're going to look over here and find out what region this row is in. Then we're going to find that region in this table to pull the existing value that exists. So the purpose of the VLOOKUP is to look up and match data in the table, it's usually the first row, first column, and then find the associated value. Okay? So we have to give it what value to look up. In this case, the data that we want to compare is in this cell. So in this case, we're going to look there, it's going to say north, we'll find north, and our value that returns will be this percentage, 7.25. Okay? So we've got our lookup value, we have our table, notice in here it has east, and then an associated value west and a value north. So then we need that table to be absolute. So if we highlight that, press F4 on the keyboard. The next thing asks you your column index, which means...
Do that again.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. You highlight a range. If you just highlight it, press F4 on the keyboard, and it'll make it absolute. Okay. So the column index wants to know, out of this table, which column contains the data that we want to display in the cell. This particular table only has two columns, a region column and a bonus. So if we're already looking up the value north and we find it in here, we want this value to show, which means that's column 2 of your table. So the column index will be number 2, because that's where our data is coming from. So we put the number 2 in there. Okay. And that's all the information we need for a lookup. We need a value to match in the table, and then we need to tell it where the data to display is. In this case, it's in column 2 that we want. So we're going to find north. North will display this. This is in column 2. And then it gives you an example of what we'll display. In this case, it's rounding it here, and we get a 0.08. So click OK there. Then it says modify the formula to multiply the results by the employee's sales amount. Fill the formula down. So here's our formula. If you click to the right-hand side of that, just press the multiplication sign. And then we're looking for employee sales revenue. So if we look, that is F4. So if we click F4, and multiply it by F4, press the check mark, and that winds up being our bonus for that particular employee.
Shouldn't it not round though? Shouldn't you have ended up with 8.2 or just 7.25?
Let's see what I'm actually supposed to do. Oops. You can, and technically yes, and let me show you. So if we do, oops. But in this case, it's not gonna make that big of a difference because we're multiplying it here. But just because you asked the question, it's good, I'm gonna show you. You take this out and go to the function. If you were to type in here, false to tell it to use the actual value, then it will display it. So this would say, don't round it. In other words, extend all the decimal places. So, and then you would do this, and then you could convert the decimal place to make it display the way you want to. But in this exercise, it doesn't really matter. Okay, so yes. Okay, so this should be your value, 1,173.47. Because we go in here, we find the specific bonus percentage for their region, multiply it by their sales, and they get their bonus amount. Then you just simply fill that down. Okay, good. That's the VLOOKUP function. You can find it and read more about it, page 214. Okay. Next one is our AND function. You probably can't see this. Let's blow this up. All right, we're looking in I4.
Mine doesn't look like that. Mine has like.
Did you make the table absolute?
Yeah. Or maybe I should
You
do
only
it
did the
over.
first
Okay.
one, right?
Okay.
So just undo that and make sure both values are absolute. There you go.
Thank you.
Good. Okay, the AND function allows you to create and work with multiple values. So we're looking in what was the other one? Did I skip one? I4, and we're going to return a true. The AND function works very similar. It has similar logic to our if statement, if you remember working with the if statements. So it says, insert an AND function in I4 that will return the text true if employee if the employee acquired at least 6 new clients since the end of the first quarter and received a bonus of at least $1,600, and fill the formula down. So we click in I4, press equal, and type AND and open the parentheses. And then press the function button to bring the function arguments button dialog box open. In this case, the AND function uses 2 sets of logic. It gives us our logic down here. If you remember, a logic statement has to return a true or false value, so it has to be testing two values against each other to then have an outcome of true or false. So the first thing says, return the text true if the employees acquire at least 6 new clients at the end of the first quarter. So let's take a look at our table. The data that we have here, we have a total clients of quarter 1, total clients of quarter 2. So in this case, we need to perform a mathematical function first. So go ahead and open up your parentheses. And we will need to take our second quarter clients and subtract them from our first quarter clients, because the difference between those two will give us how many clients we had at the end of the first quarter. Okay, we subtract those first, and that gives us a certain value. And then it says what? If they acquired at least 6 new clients. So at least means it needs to be greater than or equal to 6. Okay? So whatever value is this cell minus this cell, it has to be greater than or equal to 6, or according to the instructions, it has to be at least 6. And then the second logic asks you what? Have they received a bonus of at least 1,600? So in this case, we just did the bonus with our VLOOKUP. So our bonus will be G4. And we just simply see if it is at least, so greater than or equal to, because it can be 16 as well, 1,600. So we're going to test to see if this is true, and if this is true, we'll display a true. But if one or the other is false, it's going to display false. Okay, so that's comparing two logic statements with an and. Questions there? Okay, we press OK there. Returns false. And then it says to fill it down to I-18, so we can just drag down to I-18. Save that. Go ahead and save your worksheet. Okay, good. So and's comparing two logic statements. All right. Then we move into the count if. We've already talked about the count statements. Now we're going to set up a count if. This will take the values in a range and only count them if a certain criteria exists. So in this case, insert a COUNTIF function in M12 that will display the total number of employees in the North region. Use absolute cell reference for the region, range, and fill the formula down through M15. Replace the region for optimal, for each one formula copy. So let's look at M12, is right there. Okay. So we want to use a COUNTIF to display the total number of employees in the North region. Okay, so we're going to press equal, type count, if, open the parentheses, and press the function button. You have two main values. First thing is asking you where is the range that you want to check. Okay, so we're going to look in the employees range, region, it says. Use display the number of employees in the North region. Okay. So first thing we need to find out is where is our range that has our region in it. So that range is B4 through B18. That contains data about the region. So we just select that entire range And we check here to make sure that is exactly what shows. And it shows the north, east, west, south region. So that's correct. And then our criteria is here. In other words, it's asking, I'll move this down so we can point. It's asking, out of all the data in this range, what are you looking for? So according to our question, what is it that we're looking for? Good, the north. So just type north. There's no need to put region because if you look in here, there isn't anything that says region. We know it's region because it's in the region column. Okay, so we just type north. So it's going to count every value that exists in here, every piece of data that says north, and give us a number. So we press OK there, and then it returns a value. We get 3. If we come over here and look, let's check it ourselves. We got 1, 2, and 3. So that's correct. There's 3 employees in the north. Questions on that? Okay. All right. Then it says fill the formula down. So we're filling it down here. Of course, oops, wait a minute. Undo that. It told us to make our region formula right here. It said to make this range absolute. So just highlight that range. You can do it there and press F4 on your keyboard. F4, there. Press a check mark. So your formula should look like that. Or if you'd rather use this, you can just do the same thing here, highlight the range. Just make sure that range is absolute. Then you can fill this down. And of course it stays the same because we're still looking for the same piece of data. So if we look in our formula up at the top, if we look at what we're actually creating our table here, this is for the north, this will be for the south, this is east, and this is west. So in order for this count function to find what's in the south, we need to change our value from north to south. So we just go through each one of these. This one becomes counting if they're south, this becomes counting only if it's east, and this becomes west. So you just click up in the formula bar there, and we're going to type south here, press a check mark, click down here, then we can type in east, press a check mark, and then west, right, and press a check. And then click in each one to make sure this value matches this value. There. Okay, so I wound up with 3, 4, 4, and 4. Good. Questions on that? All right, the sum if s. We've already worked with the sum, and we've worked with the if statements. And this particular function, we're going to add values if 2 criteria match. So we're count if, and then the s is multiple, is plural because it's 2 different functions or different pieces of criteria. So we're looking in K12. K12 is, if we look at what we're actually creating, it's going to be our sales for the particular region. So sum if s function, so click equals, type sum, you can do if and then s, and open the parentheses, press your function dialog box. First thing it asks you is your sum range. Very similar to the count function. First thing you have to tell it is, where is the data that you want to test? Or what data are you going, in this case, what data are we going to add together? So what data are we adding together? Good, total sales revenue. So where does that exist in our table? Yep, it's F4 all the way through F18. So we're going to add the values in this range if they meet a certain criteria. And because it is a sum if S statement, there's going to be more than one piece of criteria. So we click where it says criteria 1 range, and it asks you where is the data for the comparison. In other words, where our sales for all the employees in the North region. So our first piece of criteria range is our region once again. So we need to find the data in the region. So the region column is right here, B4 through B18. So again, we look to make sure we have the correct values. These are our range for the region, and it does show region. And so it's telling us employees in the North. So the criteria for that is North. So we just type North in there. Make sure that North, if it has a capital N, you put a capital N here, or it's not going to find it. Okay. So that's all. It's going to count only if they exist in the North region. Then it says what? And the sales revenue is greater than 0. So criteria range 2, we go back to our sales revenue. We use the sales revenue range once again. And then we say, we see and make sure that there are values in there. And we just make sure that it says greater than 0. So in this function, the very first thing you need to tell it is, what data am I adding together? Then you set your 2 pieces of criteria. The range that contains the data you want to test, then whatever data that you want to pull out of there. We'll do a North in this case. Same thing with the second criteria. The data in the range first, and then the criteria of how we're going to add it. So if both of these criteria are met, then whatever values are left, we're going to add together. Make sense? Do you have that? Okay, press OK there. And we get a total sales for the North region of $29,293. And then it says fill the formula down, change the region, do the same thing we just did with this previous formula. Fill it down here. Oops, again I did the same thing. What did I miss? Good, right, absolute reference. Let's go back here. It says absolute cell reference for the region range. So we look here, there's our regions. So that's our first criteria, F4 on the keyboard. Region and the sales revenue range. So this one here too. F4. This is technically sales revenue too. I don't remember if I did it or not. Let's look. Just to save you guys from a resubmit, let me just double check. Yep, I did all of them. Okay. So all of the ranges here are absolute. Okay, so all the range we set there, make sure you set them as absolute values so they don't change. Press OK, fill it down. And then once again, click in South. We have to change the value to South so it actually pulls the South's data. So just go up there in the formula bar where it says North, highlight the North range, and type South. And press the check mark. It's easier to press a check mark instead of pressing the enter key, because a lot of times you start clicking around, you'll change your formula. So if you practice clicking on the check mark, you won't have to worry about messing up your formula. So then we click there. Of course, you get the inconsistent value error at first, but it's okay. As you change the rest of these, Excel realizes what you're changing, and the error goes away. then you have the west. Press a check mark, double check your values, north is there, that one is south, this one is east, and this one is west. Yep.
Different values for south, east, and west.
Did you check your absolute values? Put in the north one. Anyone else, does everyone else match, or we all do? Hold it down again. No, that's changed. Good. All right. You have a lot of these. You'll see these on the test as well. So make sure you understand how to complete these. Okay, good. All right, any more questions on that? All right, so we're gonna move through. Doing the same thing once again. Number 8 says insert the SUMIFS function in cell L12. So we're back over here. This time we're checking for clients. So right here, oops, click in L12, press equal, sum, if, s, open the parentheses, open your function arguments dialog box. And so what are we putting here in the sum range? What do we, for what it says, make a total number of what? Clients, good. So we're finding our clients, which is, says total clients, so that's E4 through E18. We'll always tell it the range with the data in it we're going to add together in this case. That always is start. Then we start with our criteria. So then what happens? And our criteria range for this, because we're looking for north, is what? Good, our region. So we highlight our region. Looking in the north region, just type north. I'm gonna go a little bit faster because it's basically the same thing we just did, except for the data that we chose to add together is different.
Absolute.
Yep, it says to do it at the end, so always wait till the end, but yes, all of them are gonna be absolute. Then range 2, first quarter north region, use absolute reference for the region. Yep, thank you. So we can click there in the region, press F4. Absolute reference for the region range, and then the total clients for quarter 2. So again, we have 2 columns for total clients. This one is quarter 2. So that's our range for the next one, quarter 2. No, it's not the range we use. Is it? It probably is the range. Yeah, for the, you're talking about to add them together? Yeah, it's the same range. Yep, same range. So we're doing that for our criteria there, second quarter clients. And the total number of clients for the second quarter, the North region is absolutely correct. And total clients for quarter two range, fill the form of now in case there. I guess there isn't two pieces of criteria in this one. It has to be. Insert L2 that will add the total number of clients from the second quarter, the North region. Yeah, so we got the second quarter, North region. Wait a minute. Is it just those two? Yes, two. Yep, that is all it is. It's just that. Equals. So your sum range is your total number of clients. Making that absolute. And for the North region. So that's all you have in this case. Is our clients range to add together and if it exists in the North. Press OK there. Should say 49. Do the same thing, fill it down. Oops. This didn't become absolute when I did it. Make sure everything's absolute, fill it down, and then change these values from north to south. And then to east. And then from west. So it looked like that. Save there. We might have to stop on that. We'll do this last one and we'll have to resume on class on Wednesday. Just so that way we make sure that we understand the functions. Alright, let me do this last one and then we'll look at it. Alright, last one is the array function. It's pretty simple. Let me show it to you real quick and then we'll resume on Wednesday. So insert the array function in the range H4 through H18. They'll calculate the total pay for each employee using the regular salary. So we click here. We highlight the range. It's just a simple addition, or in this case, what are we doing? Yeah, addition. Calculate total pay for each by using regular salary and bonus. It's addition, but you're adding the columns. So it's an array of data, so that's why it's called the array function. And this, how to do this is page, skill number 8. It's on page 224. So you press the equal, and then you highlight the range. So we find total pay by using the regular salary. So we highlight the regular salary and press the addition key, and then bonus data. So select that entire range. And to make it the array function, you will hold Control Shift and press Enter. Control Shift, press Enter, and it'll wrap it in the curly braces, or it'll wrap it into the braces there. And it tells Excel that we're going to add the data and populate it across the columns. So it's a little bit more, it's faster than just adding them and filling the data down. And that's on page 224 of the book. And save your work on your flash drive or upload it to your personal files there, and we will resume on Wednesday to complete the remaining formulas for this chapter.